About 3 days later, at a certain location in the Do domain, a spatial passage was formed, reaching southward to the Great Thousand Worlds barrier. Before this passage, a group of more than 10 figures had gathered. Leading them were Xiao, Qilin, and Xun'er, with Long Yuan and several elders standing around them. At this moment, everyone was focused on Xiao, Qilin, and Xun'er. During the meeting 3 days ago, Xiao had originally decided to go alone to the former site of the Sacred Alliance's continent. However, Xun'er insisted on accompanying him. Over the past 10 years in the Great Thousand Worlds, she had first been separated from Xiao, and even after their reunion, Xiao had been busy dealing with matters in the Do domain, leaving little time to be with her. This journey seemed like a good opportunity, so Xun'er had asked to join him. Xiao reluctantly agreed to her request. Just then, Qilin had also requested to follow them. Though outwardly calm, everyone could sense that this was, in fact, a subtle rivalry between the two women, one that even Xiao couldn't help but feel helpless about. We've made the necessary preparations, but the continent of the Sacred Alliance is located near the extraterritorial regions, so you must remain vigilant, Long Yuan said as the three prepared to depart. I will be returning to the Ruins continent shortly. Hopefully, we'll both return with good news soon. Yes, I will negotiate with the remnants of the Sacred Alliance. I don't think they will make things too difficult for us, Xiao nodded, and after giving Long Yuan and the others a farewell wave, he stepped directly into the spatial passage. Under Long Yuan's and the others' watchful eyes, Xiao, Xun'er, and Qilin entered the passage and disappeared. Afterward, Long Yuan led the others away from the area. At present, Xiao was responsible for negotiating with the Sacred Alliance's remnants, while Long Yuan needed to head to the Ruins continent to discuss matters concerning the ancient royal court's trade. A few minutes later, in the southern region of the Great Thousand Worlds barrier, on a vast and endless continent, 3 figures emerged as the space slowly distorted. They were Xiao and his companions, who had just arrived through the spatial passage from the Do domain. After stepping out of the passage, the trio landed on a nearby high peak. Standing atop the mountain, Xiao surveyed the surrounding landscape and knew they had reached their destination. This was the former site of the Sacred Alliance's continent. Xiao had originally thought that direct access might not be possible due to the protective formations set up around the continent, preventing powerful outsiders from entering. If such spatial restrictions weren't in place, then if a strong member of the extraterritorial clans tore open space and descended into the center of the continent, it would spell disaster. But now, Xiao and his companions had arrived without any obstruction, which felt eerily unusual. Xiao, brother, this former site of the Sacred Alliance's continent was always left unused because it's too close to the extraterritorial regions. Most powerful beings in the Great Thousand Worlds were reluctant to establish forces here. However, 1,000 years ago, the Sacred Alliance boldly set up their headquarters here, bringing prosperity to this otherwise quiet and unfrequented area. It was then that this continent came to be known as the Sacred Heaven Continent, Xun'er explained as Xiao gazed into the distance. So, it's called Sacred Heaven Continent, Xiao muttered. He had initially thought the continent had no name, as even Long Yuan and others referred to it simply as the Sacred Alliance's former site. Such strange spiritual energy, Qilin said, reaching out to grab a handful of the spiritual force that filled the air. Normally, this area was far from the center of the Great Thousand Worlds, and close to the extraterritorial regions, so the spiritual energy here should have been quite sparse. But Qilin felt that the spiritual energy was actually denser than in many other parts of the Great Thousand Worlds. Not only that, it was also strangely chaotic. This must be the influence of the extraterritorial regions, Xiao replied. This place is the junction between the Great Thousand Worlds and the extraterritorial worlds. The spiritual energy of the Great Thousand Worlds and the dark energy of the extraterritorial regions are fundamentally incompatible. These two world forces must have been clashing here for a long time. Where there's conflict, there's consumption, and with this consumption, spiritual energy from other regions of the Great Thousand Worlds must flow in to replenish it. Over time, this area's spiritual energy has become both more concentrated and more violent. Will the two worlds clash with each other as well? Upon hearing Xiao Yan's explanation, Kai Lin found it hard to believe. If it were a battle between experts from the extraterritorial worlds and those from the Great Thousand Worlds, that wouldn't be so surprising. But now, even the worlds themselves seemed to be subtly at odds. At this level, it seemed beyond human intervention. Let's go to the central region of the continent. There should be some cities established by the Sacred Alliance there. Xiao Yin spoke to Kai Lin and Xun'er, then swiftly moved ahead, heading toward the center of the Sacred Heaven continent. Kai Lin and Xun'er, seeing this, quickly followed. During their journey, Xiao Yin opened the Heavenly Souls detection, scanning the area within several million miles. Through this, he found that, apart from groups of roaming spirit beasts, there were no signs of humans or divine beasts with human intelligence nearby. Had the people of the Sacred Alliance left? Suddenly, just as Xiao Yin thought the Sacred Heaven continent might be deserted, a powerful aura suddenly surged into the detection range of his heavenly soul. His brow furrowed. The strength of the aura felt like that of an Upper Earth Supreme Expert, and it was rapidly approaching Xiao Yin and his companions. "What's wrong, Brother Xiao Yin?" Xun'er noticed the change in Xiao Yan's expression and asked, "Someone is coming toward us from the center of the Sacred Heaven continent." "I'm not sure if they're from the Sacred Alliance," Xiao Yin replied. "Let's speed up and find out." "All right." Xun'er and Kai Lin nodded and increased their speed to match Xiao Yan's. About half a minute later, when they were less than 500,000 miles from the center of the Sacred Heaven continent, their movements suddenly halted. A figure had appeared on the horizon, rapidly approaching them. It was a young man dressed in white, with a handsome face. His eyes were fixed warily on Xiao Yin and his companions. "Brother Xiao Yin, this person exudes a strong, murderous aura," Xun'er said as she looked at the white-clad youth standing in opposition to them. Though the surroundings were calm and the youth's expression was indifferent, Xun'er could faintly sense a violent and lethal energy emanating from him, as though he could explode at any moment. A murderous aura? Kai Lin also sensed it and narrowed her eyes. A multicolored glow erupted from her body, forming an immense, seemingly endless ancient, heaven-devouring python in the sky behind her. Boom! Having inherited the power of the ancient, heavenly serpent ancestor, Kai Lin now possessed a terrifyingly powerful killing force. This energy clashed with the faint, murderous aura radiating from the white-clad youth. "Pull back your power. He's from the Sacred Alliance." Just as Kai Lin's energy clashed with the youth's, Xiao Yan's voice reached her ears. Kai Lin, upon hearing this, slowly withdrew the power of the heaven-devouring python back into her body. After she withdrew the energy, the white-clad youth finally spoke. "The Sacred Alliance has fallen. I don't know who you are, but what brings you to the Sacred Heaven continent?" "Heh, I am Xiao Yin, Lord of the Do Domain. I've come to the Sacred Heaven continent seeking information," Xiao Yin replied to the youth. "Lord of the Do Domain?" "The Flame Emperor Xiao Yin, who won the 10,000 Pills gathering." The youth, upon hearing this, was taken aback. Clearly, he hadn't expected that the ones who had arrived on the Sacred Heaven continent would be from a lower world, let alone one of the most remarkable breakthroughs of the dimensional shackles. "That's right. I've come to understand the current state of the Sacred Alliance. I'm not sure how many people still remain," Xiao Yin continued, then added, "Rest assured, we mean no harm." Before the white-clad youth could respond, an elderly voice, originating millions of miles away, broke through the air, echoing in their ears. "So, it's the Lord of the Do Domain. I am the second elder of the Sacred Alliance. Flame Emperor, we were unprepared for your visit, and for that, we apologize for not greeting you properly." "Grandfather!" The white-clad youth, upon hearing the voice, was stunned. Xiao Yin and his companions exchanged glances. The second elder of the Sacred Alliance was here on the continent, which meant he was one of their top experts. "Lu Tian, they are guests. Take them to the Sacred Heaven Hall." The elderly voice spoke again. "Yes." The white-clad youth, called Lu Tian, nodded, lowering his earlier vigilance. Finished, Lu Tian immediately turned around and soared towards the distant horizon. "Let's go. It seems the Sacred Alliance has indeed left some powerful individuals here," Xiao Yan said. leading Xun'er and Qinglong in the same direction as Lu Tian as they took flight. Following Lu Tian, Xiao and the others quickly reached the center of the sacred heaven continent. It was a mountainous area enveloped in thick mist, where massive pavilions topped each peak, forming a grand city consisting of millions of these structures. This was Sacred Heaven City, and the Sacred Heaven Palace, where the second elder of the Sacred Alliance had been, was located in the heart of the city. Towering high into the clouds, the golden palace built on top of this colossal peak resembled a king overseeing the land, protecting this part of the world. Swish! Lu Tian landed first on the giant peak, followed closely by Xiao and the others. This is the Sacred Heaven Palace. Please follow me inside. Grandpa and Sister Xiao are already there, Lu Tian said upon reaching the palace with Xiao. This place seems like an empty city? Xiao remarked, somewhat puzzled. He had expected the Sacred Heaven City to host many remnants of the Sacred Alliance, but after surveying the entire city, he found no sign of any life. Of course, it seemed that the Sacred Heaven Palace had some sort of shielding, as even Xiao could not sense what lay within. Moreover, the Sacred Heaven Palace gave Xiao a strange feeling, almost like a heavenly artifact. Alas, now only Grandpa, Sister Xiao, and I remain here. Everyone else relocated to the lower dimension world 5 years ago, Lu Tian explained in response to Xiao's confusion. We've heard about the Sacred Alliance suddenly moving to the lower dimension. Did something happen there? Xun'er inquired. Indeed. 6 years ago, the extraterritorial clan took some action. After that, not only the Sacred Alliance, but also the Great Thousand Alliance and the Guardian Realm swiftly relocated to the lower dimension and began guarding their respective territories, Lu Tian explained. At this point, Xiao was even more baffled. What kind of upheaval had occurred in the lower dimension? Or what had the extraterritorial clan done to prompt all 3 major super lower dimension alliances to move? Only the alliance leader and Grandpa are likely aware of the specifics, but I've heard some details, Lu Tian said. It's said that the extraterritorial clan secretly initiated a plan to merge all lower dimensions into a single entity. Merging all lower dimensions into one? Xiao paused, finding it hard to believe. There were countless lower dimensions, each with its own unique conditions, including differing cultivation systems, which made each lower dimension an independent entity vastly different from the others. This significant disparity implied that merging 2 lower dimensions was fundamentally impossible. The formation of the Do domain had been possible because all fragmented worlds were originally part of one world, separated yet still cultivating through Do Qi, so their integration was logical. To Xiao, Lu Tian's claim about uniting all lower dimensions seemed almost impossible. Did the extraterritorial clan's dimension merger actually succeed? Xiao asked Lu Tian. If the extraterritorial clan had successfully merged 2 lower dimensions, then it indeed would make sense for the 3 lower dimension alliances to relocate to guard different areas. Yes, it seems to have succeeded. Otherwise, the alliance leader and the others wouldn't have moved the entire Sacred Alliance to the lower dimension, Lu Tian replied. However, my grandfather opposed the migration at that time, believing it unnecessary to relocate completely. He remained here due to his severe injuries, and I stayed behind to take care of him. Finally, Sister Xiao is the daughter of the alliance leader. He forbade her from going to the lower dimension as it was too dangerous. Hearing this, both Xiao and Xun'er were somewhat surprised. They hadn't expected the daughter of the Sacred Alliance leader to still be here. Now, with Sister Xiao present, the remaining members of the Sacred Alliance would likely follow her orders, and Xiao would have to heed her. Let's go. Grandpa is already waiting inside the palace, Lu Tian said, leading Xiao and the others into the Sacred Heaven Palace. Upon entering, Xiao immediately felt the block detection of his heavenly soul restore itself, leading him to believe that this palace was likely a highly ranked treasure. The woman sitting with her back to Xiao and the others appeared to be quite young, probably around 30 years old. At that moment, she was sitting cross-legged, not cultivating, but gazing at a portrait. The portrait depicted a man dressed in golden robes, and even from the image, he exuded an overwhelming sense of power, as if he could defy both heaven and earth and was indifferent to all things. Such a person could only be one. the leader of the Sacred Alliance, Qinglong. Buzz. As soon as Xiao Yin and the others stepped into the Sacred Heaven Hall, the space in the corridor slowly twisted and a figure in white robes materialized. The person was an elderly man, and the faint aura of heavenly soul power emanating from him immediately led Xiao Yin to judge that the old man was a genuine heavenly supreme expert. However, the heavenly soul of this old man felt like a candle about to burn out, clearly indicating that the old man had suffered grave injuries in the past. Xiao Yin could even guess the source of some of these injuries. I am Lu Shanhe. Due to my injuries, I could not come out to greet the Lord of the Do Domain. I hope you will forgive me, the old man in white robes said, cupping his hands toward Xiao Yin. He then invited Xiao Yin and the others to sit in the hall. I am Xiao Yin. I did not inform Elder Lu in advance before coming, so it may have been a bit sudden. Please do not mind, Xiao Yin responded courteously. From Lu Shanhe's attitude, it seemed that because Xiao Yin, like him, was from a lower dimension, Lu Shanhe had already considered Xiao Yin as somewhat of an ally. Yeah, there are important guests in the hall. It is somewhat rude to sit with your back to them like this, Lu Shanhe then said, turning to the woman sitting at the highest position in the hall. His words carried the tone of an elder gently reprimanding a younger one. The woman, hearing Lu Shanhe's words, slowly stood up and turned to face Xiao Yin. Only then did Xiao Yin truly see the woman's appearance. She had a delicate face as pure and clear as flowing water, with exquisite features that gave off a simple and clean impression. Are you the Flame Emperor Xiao Yin, the one who won the 10,000 pills gathering? The woman said softly as she looked at Xiao Yin. I am Qinglong. I was lost in thought just now, thinking about my father. I hope you don't mind. Hee, Miss Qinglong, please don't worry about it. We are here to discuss a few matters with you, Xiao Yin replied. Feel free to discuss whatever you wish. Since my father is no longer here, the affairs of the Sacred Alliance are now decided by me and Elder Lu. You all come from a lower dimension, so as long as it is within our capabilities, we will do our best to help, Qinglong said to Xiao Yin as she found a seat in the hall and sat down. Hee, just as you said, although the Sacred Alliance is now barely hanging on, since we all come from a lower dimension and face the same enemies, we will help with anything within our power. Even if the Sacred Alliance now consists of just the three of us, Lu Shanhe said, expressing a positive attitude like Qinglong. However, it was precisely this overly eager attitude that left Xiao Yin momentarily speechless. The Sacred Alliance had fallen to such a state, yet they were still ready to give all their remaining strength for the world. No wonder they had stood as a great wall and a protective barrier for the great thousand worlds. If Xiao Yin were to ask for the Sacred Heaven continent now, it might seem like he was taking advantage of their misfortune. Even Xun'er and Kailin, who stood beside him, would understand this. But after a moment's hesitation, Xiao Yin still decided to tell Lu Shanhe and Qinglong the real reason for his visit. No matter what, the fall of the Sacred Alliance was a fact, but the establishment of a new stronghold for the Do Domain in the Great Thousand Worlds could not be abandoned. Xiao Yin even understood that if he were to establish a base here, it would essentially mean taking on the responsibility that the Sacred Alliance once carried and becoming a new barrier for the Great Thousand Worlds after its fall. Xiao Yin shared his reasons for coming to the Sacred Heaven continent and explained why the Do Domain needed the Sacred Heaven continent. After his explanation, both Lu Shanhe and Qinglong fell silent, exchanging a look. Lu Tian, who stood nearby, also looked more solemn. The Do Domain is willing to pay 5 billion supreme spiritual liquid to purchase the Sacred Heaven continent. If you all agree, it will count as the Do Domain owing the Sacred Alliance a favor. Xiao Yin broke the silence after a while, speaking to Lu Shanhe and the others. Of course, if this is too much, we will not insist. The continent will continue to belong to the Sacred Alliance. What do you think? Hee, I didn't expect the Lord of the Do Domain to personally come here for such an important matter. After Xiao Yin finished speaking, Lu Shanhe smiled faintly and said, First of all, I can clearly sense that the Lord of the Do Domain is concerned about our feelings, but we are all reasonable people. We are fully aware of the current situation of the Sacred Alliance. In truth, the Sacred Alliance has reached such a state that if we continue to occupy this continent without offering it to others who need it, it would go against the initial purpose of the Sacred Alliance. to sacrifice everything for the world. So, if the Do domain needs the sacred heaven continent, you are free to take it. Lu Shanhe's impassioned words caused Xiao Yin to feel deep respect. If even the second elder was such a bold person, then the leader of the Sacred Alliance, Qinglong, would surely be even more magnanimous. Unfortunately, the current state of the Sacred Alliance had become what it was. If Xiao Yin had arrived in the Great Thousand Worlds 10 or more years earlier, he would have definitely befriended such a person who cared deeply about the world. Thank you, Elder Lu, for your kind support. Xiao Yin and Xun'er both stood up from their seats, respectfully cupping their hands in front of Lu Shanhe and said, "If Elder Lu does not mind, I would like to invite you to serve as an elder in the boundless fire domain that I have established. I believe your vast experience in battling the extraterritorial clans could help the Do domain and the boundless fire domain avoid many detours. I am but an old man with serious injuries, so I shall not take up an elder's seat in your boundless fire domain. Let someone else who is in greater need have it. However, the Alliance leader repeatedly asked me before the relocation to take care of you, so I hope you will take her in. She has great talent, but now that the Sacred Alliance is in such a state, it can no longer afford to nurture her talent," Lu Shanhe said to Xiao Yin. "Xiao is the last heir of the Sacred Alliance. I hope you can ensure that her potential is not wasted. Rest assured, if Sister Qiuya does not mind, she is welcome to settle in the Do domain or the boundless fire domain. Since the Sacred Alliance has given the sacred heaven continent to us, it is a great favor to the boundless fire domain. With this, Sister Qiuya will be entitled to the same resources as the heavenly elders," Xiao Yin said, then turned to look at the nearby Qing Qiuya. "Sister Qiuya, what do you think?" "I have no objections to Elder Lu's decision," Qing Qiuya said. "However, I do have a request that I would like the Lord of the Do domain to help with. I believe this request, in exchange for a continent, is not too unreasonable." If Sister Qiuya has any requests, I will do my best to fulfill them," Xiao Yin said. Lu Shanhe also looked at Qing Qiuya. He had already paved the way for her future cultivation, so what other request could she have at this point? At this moment, Qing Qiuya slowly rose from her seat. She raised her jade-like hand, and with a flash of spiritual light, everyone in the hall saw a spiritual seal appear on her palm. "This is a heavenly soul mark left to me by my father. I heard that you won the championship of the 10,000 Pills gathering and can even refine Saint Pills." Qing Qiuya looked at Xiao Yin and said, "I would like to ask you to revive my father. Sorry, I am unable to help with the resurrection of Alliance leader Qinglong." Xiao Yin shook his head after hearing Qing Qiuya's request. "Are you not a heavenly alchemist? A heavenly alchemist should be able to restore a heavenly soul mark. Given that you are also the champion of the 10,000 Pills gathering, your alchemical skills should be second to none in the Great Thousand Worlds." Qing Qiuya's request was clearly not what she had hoped for, so after hearing Xiao Yan's refusal to resurrect her father, her face turned incredibly uncomfortable, and there was a hint of resentment. "Yeah, the Flame Emperor has already done all he can. He would not deceive you," Lu Shanhe said helplessly from the side. As the Alliance leader of the Sacred Alliance, Qinglong had reached the peak of the Upper Heavenly Supreme before his death. It was doubtful whether anyone in the Great Thousand Worlds could revive him. As for Qing Qiuya's request, Xun'er and Kailin could only smile bitterly. They knew that the resurrection of Qinglong had already surpassed the capabilities of a heavenly alchemist. Xiao Xian was a prime example. "Sister Qiuya, indeed, as you said, a heavenly alchemist can restore a damaged divine soul or heavenly soul to a certain extent," Xiao Yin said. "Then why can't my father be revived?" Qing Qiuya bit her red lip and asked. "Let's clarify a few things first," Xiao Yin said. "From what I know, after the Sacred Alliance relocated to the lower dimension, it was attacked by the extraterritorial clans. The entire Alliance's resistance was in vain, and almost the entire Alliance was wiped out. However, there seems to be no news of Alliance leader Qinglong's death. That's because the Alliance leader escaped back to the Great Thousand Worlds," Lu Shanhe replied when he heard Xiao Yan's question. "In that battle, the Alliance leader fought against more than 10 heavenly emperors from the extraterritorial clans. During the fight, one of the heavenly emperors chose to self-destruct, severely injuring the Alliance leader. The self-detonated heavenly emperor left behind an evil spirit, which took advantage of the Alliance leader's serious injuries and infiltrated his heavenly soul, igniting netherfire. As a result, the Alliance leader's heavenly soul was consumed. Xiao was slightly taken aback. He knew that when a powerful member of the extraterritorial clan faced defeat, they would ignite their own netherfire to gain a brief surge of peak strength. The example of the Tuo Shi ancient emperor, who had battled Xiao in the Daling domain, came to mind. But now, to his surprise, these powerful beings from the extraterritorial clan, in order to confront the Sacred Alliance leader Qinglong, had actually chosen to self-destruct their bodies, burning themselves with the evil spirit's flames, dragging Qinglong into an irreversible hell of eternal torment. Over a dozen extraterritorial heavenly emperors surrounded the Sacred Alliance. No matter how it was calculated, this situation shouldn't have been one of overwhelming defeat. Yet these extraterritorial heavenly emperors still chose to pay such a price. Truly, it was madness. After the heavenly soul was consumed by the netherfire, although the Alliance leader managed to expel the evil spirit from his body once again, the heavenly soul, already burning, could not be extinguished. At this point, the Alliance leader knew that the destruction of the Sacred Alliance was irreversible. So, he chose to escape back to the Great Thousand Worlds to see Ya for one last time. In the end, the Alliance leader was burned to nothing by the netherfire in front of Ya. Alas! By the time he reached this part, even Lu Shanhe couldn't help but sigh deeply, and the atmosphere within the sacred heaven hall became exceedingly heavy. At this moment, Qingqiuya, hearing Lu Shanhe's words, couldn't help but recall that helpless scene. A young girl, watching her father, slowly walking toward death in front of her, an irreversible death. Thinking of that moment, Qingqiuya's eyes reddened, but she forced herself to hold back her tears. Xiao now finally understood the full story behind the downfall of the Sacred Alliance. However, he hadn't expected that the Alliance leader's final fate would turn out like this. It was likely that many of the powerful figures in the Great Thousand Worlds still thought that the Sacred Alliance leader had only been severely injured and was hiding away. Since Qinglong has fallen, please, Sister Qiuya, grieve no more, Xiao said to Qingqiuya. And you should know that the only thing the Alliance leader left behind for you was a heavenly soul imprint with no consciousness. Although it's possible to repair the imprint using the art of refining people and restore it to a complete heavenly soul state, the fact that the imprint lacks consciousness means that the restored heavenly soul would be in the same condition. Is this the Qinglong you wish for, one who is completely different from the one you knew? Xiao Yan's words reached Qingqiuya, causing her to tremble slightly. She shook her head immediately. What she wanted was, of course, the father she once knew. In my opinion, the only solution now is to send the remaining spiritual imprint of Qinglong to the cycle of reincarnation as soon as possible. Although the reborn Qinglong would have no connection to you, at least he would get a new beginning. Xiao continued, I once had a senior who, like this, was sent to reincarnation, and may have already been reborn. However, finding him in this vast Great Thousand World would not be an easy task. Is there really no other way? Qingqiuya asked, still unwilling to give up. There is. The way is to break through the rules and reach the level of control. A powerhouse of that level may possess unimaginable abilities, and bringing someone back from the dead might be within their power, Xiao said. Upon hearing this, Qingqiuya's expression darkened, while Lu Shanhe beside her looked even more helpless. The legend of breaking through the rules and reaching control had been passed down in the Great Thousand World for countless years, but no one had ever been able to prove the existence of such a powerhouse. Whether that level even existed had become a question in itself, and Xiao treating it as a solution was, in fact, telling Qingqiuya that this matter was no longer possible. Regarding the resurrection of my father, let's just forget it, Qingqiuya said to Xiao. As for the sacred heaven continent, if you need it, you may take it. But I want 10 billion supreme spiritual liquid. Since Sister Qiuya is so straightforward, I'll give you 10 billion, or even 20 billion supreme spiritual liquid, Xiao said, secretly pleased that Qingqiuya had agreed to hand over the sacred heaven continent for him to establish the boundless fire domain. However, he was also curious about why Qingqiuya, suddenly wanted 10 billion supreme spiritual liquid. Don't misunderstand. I just want to quickly reach the perfected Earth Supreme, and then attempt to break through to the Heavenly Supreme level. Once I have enough strength, I'll avenge my father against the extraterritorial clan, Qinglong replied. Upon hearing this, Xiao Yin could only shrug helplessly. He didn't intend to stop her. Although he thought that Qinglong's desire for revenge against the extraterritorial clan was somewhat unrealistic, at least it gave her a goal to strive toward. With this goal in mind, Qinglong would likely grow even stronger.